Most designers who say that they don't need to understand code are not making a philosophical argument. They are making a fear-based one. And the market is about to call their bluff. In this video, I'm going to tell you why code is the new design medium, what does it mean to understand development as a designer, and why the most exciting careers being built in design right now are of the people who are not afraid of that black screen. I want to start with something personal because I think it explains a pattern that I have seen in hundreds of designers over my 5 years of mentoring. I started as someone who wanted to be a developer. Even though I had biotech as my major, I wanted to become a computer science graduate. But somewhere along the way, code started feeling harder and design started feeling more natural. And I took a decision, like a quiet decision but not a conscious one, and that is to go towards something that was scaring me less. But here's the thing, because I still kept pushing myself to be as close to code as possible, I actually spent the first 5.5 years of my career being a designer and a front-end developer. And that situation, even though it was a very uncomfortable part of my life, changed how I see product design today. Now, here's a pattern I've noticed in a lot of the designers I've mentored over the years. Most of them come from computer science backgrounds, but they chose design, not because they loved design or they were drawn to it, but because they did not want to code. And somewhere along that line, somebody told them that if you want to stay in IT but don't want to code, design is a good option. A safer option to use your computer science degree without having the need to write code. They became designers to escape development. But in 2026, development is coming back for them and they have nowhere to hide. Number one, let me tell you what actually knowing development looks like in practice, because this is not a theoretical video. I've actually seen the impact on real teams. A designer who doesn't understand the code does not know the difference between product design and graphic design. They design for a canvas, not for a system, not for a medium, not for the person who will have to build it. And the result? Beautiful Figma files but unusable handoff. Components that are not scalable, interactions that are impossible to build within the product's constraints. And when the developer comes back and says that we can't build it exactly, the designer feels like the developer is trying to be hard. The developer is like, designer is like, cuckoo. And then the trust between them is broken, and this trust never comes back. And I've seen this happen in large teams where design and development were like working in parallel universes. Design is doing one thing, development is doing something else. And the product is caught in the middle, inconsistent, slow to ship and expensive to maintain. And it's not because anyone is bad at their job, it's because nobody built a bridge between the two. Let me make a statement. A designer who does not understand development designs for themselves. A designer who does understand development designs for the product. Okay, number two, let me give you an example of what happens when you actually understand development. And I'm going to use an example from my cohort. So in my recent cohort, I had some designers who were interns and associate designers in companies that were either making CRMs or making some product for small and medium-sized business owners, or some of them were actually making products for influencers. Now, before the cohort started, they all told me the same thing, and that is they are being left out of the conversations that are related to engineering and how the product will actually be built, meaning all the technical conversations. Their developers did not take the designers seriously. Why? Because the designers were not able to explain their design decisions in a language that the developers understood. But by the time the cohort ended, because of the shared understanding of design systems and development that those students had built, something changed. The same designers started initiating conversations with their engineering teams about design systems, about component architecture, about how investing in building a shared design system will help them ship the product faster. And they did it not with a presentation, but with a technical argument that the engineering and product teams understood. And they got the alignment. Now, this is what happens when a designer starts to understand development. They don't just design better products, they become the bridge between design and engineering, between what the product could be and what the team can actually build. And trust me, this bridge does not exist in most of the organizations. And that also means the designers who can build this bridge are indispensable, are irreplaceable. Number three, let's handle the practical question, and that is, what does it mean for a designer to actually understand development? And I want to answer this differently depending on where you are in your career. If you're between 0 to 3 years in your career, you need to be able to understand basic HTML, CSS. Like, you should be able to right click and inspect a website, see the HTML and CSS code, and be able to manipulate it confidently. You should also be able to understand what is a static design and what is a design with dynamic data. You need to understand what is an API, what is a component, what are these frameworks like React or Vue, and how are they different from just normal HTML CSS. And also how all of this combined affects how you design. Remember, at 0 to 3 years, you don't need to be able to write code. You just need to be able to speak the developer's language. You need to do this just enough that you understand their world. And your ability to do this is gonna get you invited into rooms where designers are usually not invited. Now, if you're between 3 to 7 years, the bar is higher. At this stage, you should be able to take a component in design from your design system and you should be able to implement it in code via AI. Now remember, you don't need to do it perfectly, you just need to do it well enough that the developer does not have to start from scratch and they can take in your code and start to polish it. This is a completely different kind of contribution from a designer, and your ability to do this is gonna change how engineering team is gonna see you. And as an add-on, if you can actually build pages of your product designs using AI and ship production ready code, or let's just say 80 to 90% efficient code to developers, nothing like it. Number 4, and I'm not gonna soften this because the evidence is already there, a designer in 2026 has to be able to ship production ready code. Now, you don't need to do it 100% of the time. You don't need to do it for every feature. But if there is a part in your product that is design heavy or craft heavy, if you are able to actually develop it, it's going to save the organization a hell lot of time. Why? Because these are the parts where there is the most amount of to and fro between engineering and development. These are the parts where engineering often misses the nuances of your design, and that is why you should be able to take care of it. Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds a little bit extreme, but let me tell you what's already happening in the world. Vercel, which is one of the most respected product building teams across the world, has been constantly hiring design engineers in the last 2 years. And this culture of designers producing production ready code has empowered their designers so much that those designers are going to work on companies like Cursor, Notion, OpenAI. And if you don't know it yet, designers at companies like Razorpay and Swiggy are already shipping production ready code. And I can verify this because those people are in my network, they are my friends. Now this also matters for a very specific reason, and that is if a designer can actually code their own design, this frees up a lot of the engineering bandwidth for the things that only engineers can do, and that is implementing things at scale, producing good quality architecture, and optimizing the performance of the product. Now these are the hard technical problems, but when the designers are able to save engineering bandwidth, developers or engineering is able to ship products even faster. Time to make a statement. Gone are the days when the designers only had to ship design. Now the designer has to not just design it but also build it. Number 5, practically, what do you do with all the information that I just told you about? Especially if you're early in your career and I know that code feels scary. This is where I would start. Open a website that you admire. Right click and click inspect. And then just stay there and see the code. You don't need to change anything. You don't need to manipulate data or HTML. Just stay there and start to get comfortable looking at code. Why? Because most of the fear actually starts to go away the moment you get comfortable seeing the code. Then you start to understand the vocabulary. What is HTML? What is CSS? What is React? What are these React components? What is API and how is it connected or relevant to the design that you're building? And remember, you don't need to be suddenly able to write these things from scratch. You just need to be able to understand them initially. You need to be able to read them, understand them, and you should be able to ask some intelligent questions in a room full of engineers. And then use AI, because this is exactly what AI is good at right now, helping you move from a design to a working implementation. You know, not static design, but a moving, breathing design that does not feel like a Figma prototype, but more like a real product that is going to ship into the user's hand. Because trust me, that feeling of seeing your design come alive in a browser where you can interact with it changes how you see design permanently. Because then you will start designing for how things will actually feel in the user's hand, not just on your Figma prototype. I opened this video by saying that the designers who avoid code are making a fear-based argument dressed up as a philosophical argument. I know this because I almost made the same argument. and I also know what it costed me in my initial years of design. The designers who are going to build the most interesting careers in the next decade are not the ones who are going to stay in one lane. These will be the ones who looked at that black screen, felt the fear, and still opened the inspector anyway. One line at a time, one component at a time, until that fear became fluency. Remember, code is the new design medium. Let me repeat. Code is the new design medium. Claude, Cursor are the new design tools. And the sooner you start treating it that way, the sooner your career will start reflecting it. Next video is on business fluency, the most underrated skill for a designer. That is the skill that turns a great designer into someone who cannot be replaced by anybody. Like an organization cannot afford to lose you. That's video 4. This is Rajat Patel. I'll see you tomorrow.